Good day, everyone. Our lesson for today is the female reproductive system with me, Miss Ives Remando, RNMN. For our learning objectives, you, as the learners, will be able to identify the structures of the female reproductive system when provided with an appropriate model or diagram and explain the function of each. You will be able to identify the fundus, the body, and cervix regions of the uterus. And lastly, name the exocrine and the endocrine products of the ovary. And now for our first objective, let's start with the structures of the female reproductive system. We have the ovaries or the female gonads. These are the primary sex organs of the female. It's like the testes of the male. The ovaries produce both an exocrine product. We have the eggs, the ova or the egg cells, or it is also what we call the gametes. We also have an endocrine product, which are the estrogens and the progesterone. The accessory structures of the female reproductive system transport, house, nurture, or otherwise serve the needs of the reproductive cells and/or the developing fetus. The reproductive structures of the female are generally considered in terms of internal organs and external organs, or the external genitals. The external genitalia consist of the mons pubis, the labia majora and the labia minora, the clitoris, and the urethral and vaginal orifices, and the greater vestibular glands. So we have the mons pubis. It's a rounded fatty area overlying the pubic symphysis. Running inferiorly and posteriorly from the mons pubis are two elongated, hair-covered skin folds, which is what we call the labia majora, which are homologous to the scrotum of the male. This enclose two smaller hair-free folds, which is what we call the labia minora. The labia minora in turn enclose a region called the vestibule, which contains the clitoris most anteriorly, followed with the urethral orifice and the vaginal orifice, the diamond-shaped region between the anterior end of the labial folds, the ischial tuberosities laterally, and the anus posteriorly is called the perineum. Okay, next, we have the small protruding clitoris. What is the clitoris? It is homologous to the male penis, and it is likewise also composed of highly sensitive erectile tissue, and it is hooded by a prepuce. The urethral orifice posterior to the clitoris is the outlet for the urinary system and has no reproductive function in the female. So next, we have the vaginal opening or the vaginal orifice. And lastly, we have the greater vestibular glands. These are pea-sized, mucus-secreting glands that lubricates the distal end of the vagina during intercourse. Okay, now let us proceed. We are done with the external genitalia for our first objective. Let's proceed to the second objective, which is the internal genitalia. These are the internal female organs, which includes the vagina, the uterus, and the uterine tubes or the fallopian tubes. We have the ovaries and the structures that suspend these organs in the pelvic cavity. Let's start with the vagina. The vagina extends for approximately 10 centimeters or 4 inches from the vestibule to the uterus superiorly. It also serves as a copulatory organ, a birth canal, and permits the passage or the flow of menstruation to pass. We have the pear-shaped uterus as the next one. It is situated between the bladder and the rectum. There is a muscular organ with its narrow end that is directed inferiorly or below it, and that is what we call the cervix. Okay, so here in the middle, that is what we can see as the body of the uterus, which is the major portion or the major part of the uterus. Superior to it or above it, there is the fundus. Okay, above it is what we call the fundus. Okay, so again, let's repeat. Cervix is here at the bottom. It is situated inferiorly. It is a muscular organ and it's a narrow end. Next, we have the body, which is the major portion of the uterus. It's the middle. And on top of that is the fundus. Again, on top of that or superior to that is a rounded region above the entrance of the uterine tubes. Okay, on the left and the right, these are our uterine tubes or our fallopian tubes. A fertilized egg is implanted in the uterus, which houses the embryo during its development. Okay, so next to the equation, we have the uterine tube. It is also what we call the fallopian tube. It enters the superior part of the uterus and extends also 4 inches or 10 centimeters towards the ovaries in the peritoneal cavity. Okay, so we have 2 ovaries. The distal ends of the tubes are funnel-shaped and have finger-like projections, which are what we call the fimbriae. Okay, again, it's a funnel-shaped and it's also finger-like projections at the distal end of the tubes. So unlike the male duct system, there is no actual contact between the female gonad and the initial part of the female duct system, the uterine tube. The internal female organs are all retroperitoneal except of the ovaries. Okay, so we have the ovaries. We discussed that earlier in the first part of our lecture. Again, it's our primary sex organ. It has the ova, estrogen, and the progesterone. Okay, and lastly, we have the structures that suspends the organs, these organs in the pelvic cavity. So we call this the ligaments. So we have here the ligaments that supports and somewhat freely by folds of peritoneum. So the peritoneum takes an undulating course. The fold that encloses the uterine tubes and the uterus and secures them to the lateral body walls is what we call the broad. The round and the uterosacral ligaments also help attach the uterus to the body wall. The ovaries, on the other hand, are supported medially by the ovarian ligament, extending from the uterus to the ovary, and laterally by the suspensory ligament. Okay, so you may refer to this image on the right side. Before I would end, I would like to thank everybody for your attention, and I would like to leave you this note also. Show yourself more love by investing in yourself and studying more, because it is for your future. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.